Welcome to the Daily Dev Talk with me, Adrian Nantchev, where we explore and share experiences, stories, and lessons 7 days a week from across the games industry, helping you make the best game you can. Stay tuned for today's episode. Good morning, Overload Nation. Welcome to another episode of Daily Dev Talk, talking to game developers from across the world to bring you experiences, stories, and lessons 7 days a week. I'm joined with Kris Skellorn from Payload to talk about their first game, TerraTech.
Hello.
Kris, it's a bit early. Kris, tell us about yourself.
Hi, hello, I'm Kris. I'm a game designer working at Payload Studios. We're an indie studio based in London making a game called TerraTech.
Okay, so how long have you been in the games industry then?
So I started making games about 6 or 7 years ago. I got my start after my second year of uni, working for a small studio that is no longer with us. And I was making J2ME smartphone games at the point just before the iPhone came out. And then after that, I started making iPhone games. But now with Payload, we're making a PC game.
So how did you get into Payload and TerraTech?
So Payload was founded by Russ Clark, who I worked with at IdeaWorks. He was my boss at IdeaWorks, game studio, another mobile developer. And so I met him when I started working there. I guess I started working there in 2010. And after he finished working there, he was talking about wanting to start up a studio and make a game. And so we were talking about ideas that we liked, and he started developing a demo of TerraTech. And when it got to an interesting point, I decided that I really wanted to be involved with it, and went and joined him full time. About, I guess it was April last year when I quit my other job and came and worked here. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Payload, the studio. So, how big is it, and what's the structure, and what's the workflow and such?
So, as I say, we're an indie studio. We are 8 people in the studio full time, and we have one person outside helping us out with marketing and that sort of thing. And it's a fairly flat structure. I mean, we're all reasonably experienced developers. There's a few junior guys as well, but it's a fairly normal breakdown. There's design, art, code, and we each cover our own disciplines, but we also muck in on all sorts of other things like promoting the game at shows and creating marketing materials and live streaming and writing development blogs and that sort of thing. And as far as the direction of the game goes, Russ has a good say of that. I think he has sign off on most things, but we're quite a close team, so we all have lots of input on all sorts of different areas of it.
A classic, like a classic indie studio, very close knit, and everyone's more or less jack of all trades.
Well, yeah, yes and no. I mean, I guess the popular phrase is we wear a lot of hats, but we still have a fairly good structure of our own specialized disciplines. As I say, I'm a designer, so it's very rare that I'll have anything to do with the artwork or the programming side of things. The same goes for the other guys as well. But yeah, we all muck in with whatever we need to do when we need to do something. Our producer, for example, sometimes helps out with the 2D art assets and that sort of thing. And then testing the game is handed out amongst all of us, with our community manager sort of trying to organise us from the sidelines.
All right then, Kris. So as a designer, tell us about your latest game and what you wanted the player to experience at the beginning.
Sure. So TerraTech, the high concept is that you build vehicles out of modular Lego-like pieces. So lots of different blocks, and once you've built your vehicle, you go out and attack enemies, and you shoot their bricks off and take their bricks and build your vehicle stronger. And you're in a procedurally generated world. You don't go to a safe building zone when you when you need to rebuild, you have to rebuild on the fly and deal with any enemies that want to interrupt you during that time. There's base building, crafting, and flying, and lots of different challenge modes. And we're just getting to the point in development now where we're putting the single player progression in there. So that includes lots of missions that you find to explore the procedurally generated world. There's resource gathering and dealing with and managing a fleet as you grow beyond a single vehicle into multiple ones. So it's a pretty big game, but we're getting there.
Yes, it would be quite cool in later versions, as you said, to have more of a story progression.
Yeah, that's
Because
it.
at the start, it was like, here, there's some crash site over here, get your stuff.
Yeah.
Over there, another crash site. And I really felt how it was a big world.
Yeah.
It had that like Spore-esque kind of feel at the beginning where there's a comet you crash. Okay, let's get straight into it. And you start off small, like a single cell practically, and then you're building and building and building. And then by the end of it, you've got a massive vehicle with dozens of wheels and massive cannons.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so at the moment we have that introduction part, which is getting a bit more structured. We don't want to impose too much. So if you get bored of the tutorial or you're not interested in following that initial stage, we do want to allow people to just wander off and do whatever it is that they're there to do. But at the same time, we're building in those layers of little nudges in the right direction. So we're going to add a quest log and that sort of thing, which will help you keep track of the things that we can suggest for you to do if you're at a loose end, as it were. But yeah, that's all coming. I mean, for the longest time, we've had the kind of bones of the game in place. You know, you can build, you can shoot, you can drive around, and we're at that squeaky stage where we're trying to put the structure in place so that you encounter the right blocks at the right time, and it sort of feeds you all the content available over a longer period of time.
I'm curious, how did you go about promoting the game, and what strategies worked for your game, and what did not work as well?
Sure. So we have quite an open policy of talking about our game all the way through development. So as soon as we could put a public demo out, we had a public demo out, and we've been live streaming our game pretty much constantly. We live stream on Twitch 5 times a week, usually starting at 5 p.m. in the evening UK time. TerraTech Game. Twitch.tv/TerraTech Game if you want to join us. And we also go to lots of shows, and we just got back from Minecon over the weekend where we were showing the game. And during our Kickstarter campaign, we were just hitting up everyone we could possibly get to play the game and promote it and talk about it. We try and maintain as much contact with YouTubers as we can and Twitch players as well, and give out free codes to those guys so that they can get involved with the game and show it to their viewers. But yeah, I mean it's really a grassroots effort. We don't pay for advertising really. I think we paid for one advert on one site at some point, but we decided that probably wasn't the best way to spend our limited money. So we do it as more of a ground up kind of thing.
Well, why do you think that the advert was not a very wise expense?
Well, it's hard. It was hard for us at the time. It was during our Kickstarter campaign. It was hard for us to track exactly how many people came in through that through the adverts, and how many people were actually organic at the time. And it was really just during our Kickstarter campaign that we were interested in trying out things like that. And since then, we just feel like it's better to have a more organic growth. You know, we don't want to necessarily reach saturation point of the game too early, because it's an early access game and the development is ongoing, and so we want to get people involved who are interested in approaching the game through that sort of process, but at the point where we're ready to where we feel like the game is at a 1.0 standard, that's when we really want to shout as loud as we can to get as many people as we can to look at the game.
Yeah, I can understand that because I find that with some early access games that if too many people have it and they've paid for it and they've paid for an incomplete game,
Yeah,
then then that could be it. People have already got the game, but it's incomplete, and they could have the wrong idea about it.
right. Yeah,
That's what I imagine the double-edged sword about early access,
yes,
and I
it's
can understand why you didn't want to have too much saturation of the market.
no, yeah. I mean, obviously, we're very proud of what we're doing, and we feel like we're offering uh, an experience which is worthy of the price tag that we apply to it at, even at the early access stage. Um, but we're very aware that the people who are getting involved with the game at this stage and communicating with us and playing the game and getting involved with our forums and that sort of thing, they're willing um, to kindly overlook a few of the issues that are inevitable with an early access game, um, so that they can see it at this stage. Whereas that's not the general consensus for everyone who plays games, I don't think.
I understand. And speaking of the game, what was cut from the game and why?
Um, well, very little has been cut so far. I mean, we're still in an ongoing development process with it. We release new builds every 2 weeks, and so it, for us, nothing has been really removed from the table that we wanted to put in the game. Not yet, anyway. Things are still being added to the game. Um, the creative mode and the multiplayer are probably the biggest challenges ahead of us, which are the two biggest hotly requested features. And we started working on multiplayer a couple of months ago now. So we have our initial tests and our forays into there, but it still needs work before we're ready to actually put it out there for everyone to play. Um, and the creative mode, we're still working on. We're still working out exactly what our offering for that will be.
Well, that's quite rare actually to have a game that's not had much cut from it.
Yeah, I mean, it was an ambitious scope for the game when we started working on it, but we are still continuing working towards that eventual goal. Um, it's something which is it's quite I guess it's quite unique like that, but that's what this process allows for, because we're selling the game as we're working on it. Um, it means that we really can just respond to what people are uh, asking us for directly in our community. We don't have to kind of stick a finger up in the air and try and figure out what people want. We communicate with our players every day, through our Twitch chat and through our forums, and so we're very aware of exactly what they want, and we know where our focus needs to be. So it's a very helpful process for us.
Yeah, I can understand. And speaking of which, what was the biggest thing you learnt while working on the game?
The biggest thing I learned, I guess the whole process. I mean, I've been designing games for a while, and so I feel like I've got a good grasp of that sort of thing. And there's always new tools and processes to learn on that side. I mean, we're using a visual scripting language in Unity called UScript, which I'm got to grips with, and the sort of architecture of the project, or the pipeline that we go through to create content in the game is always different from one game to another. So you always learn things like that. But I guess the most different thing that I've learned through this process is really streaming the game and trying to create a game uh, in a very transparent way, which I had no experience of doing before. So just having a building up an understanding of how we collate the information that everyone's the feedback that everyone's giving us in our forums, and how we respond to it effectively to make sure that we're still on task with what people want, and we're getting there in a good amount of time, that people aren't getting annoyed, that they don't feel like they're being responded to. That was an interesting process, and I feel like we're still fine tuning that. We're still getting that where we want it to be, and yeah. yeah, live streaming is a funny thing. When we first started live streaming every day, we were kind of nervous about it, and we wanted to make sure that we're showing everything in its best possible light, and it was quite formal. But now when we live stream, it's a bit more relaxed, and we have regular players coming in and communicating with us through the chat every day. And it's kind of more, it's a more friendly affair really, because we just show them what the latest stuff that's gone in, or we showcase all of the best community created vehicles in the game. And we just kind of hang out, which is a nice thing. It's a really good thing.
And thus you're building that community, and you're being a studio that who people will want to deal with you and do business with you and buy your games from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's for us during after our Kickstarter campaign, it was really important that we had that level and frequency of communication, because obviously developing games takes a long time, but as we're putting out updates as often as we can and showing off our work, what we're up to as frequently as we do, I think it makes it easier for people to understand what's going on, and why the thing that they want in the game is going to take a little bit longer to get there, or something like that. They can see us and they can see what we're busy with, and speak directly to us as well. It's not like we just go into, we finish the Kickstarter, then go into a sort of incubation mode where we're just busy making something in secret and no one really knows what we're up to. I feel like it's a better process for building a good amount of trust between us and between the community and us.
What was the worst thing that happened while working on the game, and how did you overcome it?
I'm not really sure. I don't think we've had too many train wrecks. Touch wood. We've got some good experienced people, and we've managed to get through a lot of the trickier spots. I guess more recently, when we made a switch from Unity 4 to Unity 5, we found that there were problems with the wheel colliders in the physics engine. It wasn't as suitable, so Russ had to spend a lot of time working on that and making sure that was right. And then we also had problems with the shaders, especially on Mac. So that took us a little while. And whilst we were making that switch, we were also just starting to work on multiplayer, and dealing with another big change in the game as well. So it felt like we were trying to take on too many big features or too many big changes all at once, and so the content for the game wasn't moving as quickly. But coming through that, we finished our transition into Unity 5. All of the artwork looks better, and multiplayer is still ongoing and that sort of thing. So we're kind of through that bath of fire, but it just made us realise that we need to focus on one big change at a time rather than trying to take them all on at once. Even if the people working on it are different people, it still kind of throws things out of whack and slows down our process. I guess that was the main one. Yeah.
There's a quote that I learnt a while ago, which is focus, FOCUS, follow one course until success.
Right. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds like a good idea. I mean, yeah, I've heard similar ones of do less, do more. If you try and spread yourself too thin, then it's very hard to achieve everything. But if you just focus on one thing at a time, you'll get things done faster.
Yeah. Exactly. If everything is a priority, nothing is a priority.
Yeah, that's it. Right. Yeah.
And what is the best game dev purchase or investment you all made? Whether it was a software license, a top quality piece of hardware or equipment, or it could simply be a comfortable chair and a good desk.
It's got to be Unity. I mean, we couldn't possibly be making this game without Unity. It's the single keystone piece. Apart from all of us as developers that we couldn't do without. Yeah, I mean it's great having Unity because it's the price is right, and it does everything we need, and it's getting better all the time. There, some of our guys just got back from Unite a couple of weeks ago as well, and we're getting all the support we need from them as well. And for an indie studio, it's just, if you think about 5 years ago or 10 years ago, that there wasn't really any option like that. Definitely not for a reasonable price tag. So yeah, Unity hands down.
I think 10 years ago there would have been nothing like this at all. It
Yeah.
all would have been like independent would have been near non-existent.
Right. Yeah.
Certainly 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think the only way to build, well, good advertisement will be to get your game in like Game Master or PC Gamer or something like that back in the day. I mean, I'm talking like 01, 02, 03, certainly 05. There wasn't much out there. Maybe like Gamesville, but that was like 2000 and such. But
Yeah.
I think maybe 5 years ago, definitely things like Unity started to be more affordable and more approachable. That people like teams of 8 and 3 and 1, whatever, could make games in the garages like they did in the 1980s or such, and it was more commercially viable.
Yeah. I mean, I think being an indie game maker, it's guy from Blambeer, I saw him tweet the other day that he doesn't think it's ever been a point where there's been like a golden age where it's easy to be an indie game developer, but in recent years it's just gone from impossible to very, very hard. And that's like, that drop in difficulty is thanks largely to the availability of great tools like Unity.
Yeah, exactly.
And more open platforms like, I guess, iOS and Steam and that sort of thing. Having that distribution platform where you can make your game, publish it yourself, and put it out there without having to get box copies made and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, definitely. But what concerns me is the classic product curve, whether or not Steam and iOS and such like that 5, 10, 15 years from now will still be prominent, and whether or not those will still be viable ways of getting your game out there in the future.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? The problem changes from one of having the funds to go through certification and distribution or get involved with a publisher that could help you out with that previously. It goes from that to being in a marketplace that's completely overwhelmed with other games. So it's not about inaccessibility. It's very accessible now for smaller developers / publishers, but it's one of discoverability. It's about getting your game seen and getting the attention you need to get it into people's hands, really.
Exactly.
And so I guess that there are tools for that are developing constantly. The Steam curation lists are a very good thing, and I guess the nature of the gaming press and the shift into I don't know, people discovering games through YouTube videos, maybe. It's, I'm not sure if it's better or worse, but it's definitely changing. It's a funny thing trying to put your game out there and get enough attention for it. Yeah.
Speaking of attention and getting things out there, do you have a game developer related book, lecture, or learning resource worth recommending?
Yeah, I watch the extra credits shows religiously. Those guys make great little webisodes every week, little lectures on different aspects of games and game design. I've been watching them for years now. They're really good. And more recently, I've also started watching a new show. This guy doesn't quite manage to do a show every week, but they're getting pretty frequently now. But it's Game Maker's Toolkit, which I think is by, I think his name is Mark Brown, but he's making some excellent game design videos. But yeah, I'd recommend both of those. They're both YouTube videos, YouTube channels. But they're excellent, high quality advice for anyone interested in games and game making.
That's great to hear. And I actually have a book here called Level Up,
Right.
a guide to Great Video Game Design, which I got a few years ago, like 2011 or 12, something like that. Ever heard of that book?
No, I'm not sure. I used to buy a lot of game making sort of textbook style books, and read them, but I haven't really had much time recently, so I haven't been following what people have been writing now.
Mm-hmm. And like an Evernote or Trello, do you have a useful or productivity enhancing software, app, extension, or website worth sharing?
Yeah, we use Trello. We use Trello. It's pretty good. We're experimenting with Assembler now putting together a similar sort of task tracking management ticketing system that our producer's been slowly shifting us towards. I think he's quite keen on it. We use Assembler for our source repository and source control, that sort of thing. And so we're going to try that out. And I guess we'll have to let you know how it goes. We haven't started using it in anger yet, so I can't speak for whether it's better or worse than Trello. But Trello is a great tool. I think it's got us to a good place so far. So I'd recommend Trello as well.
And what advice can you give to aspiring game developers, small indie studios, and people trying to get to where you are today?
Okay, so I'd say to not be too secretive about what you're working on. If you're not in a large company where they have a specific plan for how they're going to market the game and build awareness of the game after it's finished. If you're making a game on your own or in a small team, you should do everything you can to speak about the game and build up a community and make people aware of the game before. I think it's been strange for some of the guys who have joined our team from larger studios to experience that shift in culture where they've many studios in the games industry have a policy of being very, very secret about unreleased games or unannounced games, and so that's almost second nature to a lot of developers who've been working in games for a long time. But for us, we try and talk about exactly what we're working on, exactly when we're working on. We try and show our processes. We stream actual development of our game. And for us, that's about building a community of people who are interested in our game and game development in general, and yeah, it's a very fruitful thing for us. So it's important not to be too secretive about it, because if you make a game and get it out there and you haven't built up a community of people who are interested in there and ready to receive it and ready to talk about it and ready to push it to their friends, then it's going to be that much harder for your game to get noticed.
I understand that. Sharing the ideas and getting other people's ideas and feedback.
Yeah, that's it.
So what is next for you and your studio, and what's the best way to contact you?
The best way to get involved with us is through our Twitch channel. If you go to twitch.tv/TerraTech Game, then you can catch us streaming at 5 p.m. UK time, pretty much any weekday. And next for us is continued work on TerraTech. This is our sole project, and we're just focused on making the game as good as it can be until we reach that release point, and then supporting it beyond that as well.
Well, Kris, it appears that we're out of time for this episode of the Daily Dev Talk.
Okay.
It was great.
Thanks
great
for
to talk
me.
to you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Plenty to think about.
Yeah, no, it's been really
I wish
good.
you well on future endeavours.
Hey, thank you. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Stay tuned, Overload Nation. More Daily Dev Talks to come. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Daily Dev Talk with me, Adrian Nantchev. If you are a game developer that wants to get your name and game out there and to share your experiences and stories, or you have feedback or opinions of the show, then contact me at info@gameoverload.co.uk. That's info@gameoverload.co.uk. Stay tuned for tomorrow's episode. More to come.